Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 36 Cancel, and this is Coco the Weiss Cat. And if you're a Spiral warrior, I have bad news for you. Because today, we're looking at the Spiral's nemesis. Not to be confused with the Spiral nemesis. That's right, it's the Antispiral. Well, just who the hell do you think the Antispiral are? Basically, the enemies of any evolving creature. And the enemy of a lot of Weiss decks soon enough. You see, Gurren Lagann just dropped in English. 36 Cancel actually opened 8 Gurren Lagann boxes on the channel, and the box opening for those are in the description. So now that we've opened some fire boxes, it's time to get down to business. And just like in the Titan Rondo, we're going to start with the token blue enemy faction. Antispirals in Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann are blue. Unlike Titan, there's no card that isn't blue that has the Antispiral trait. And also unlike Titan, there are no blue shinies in the set. No foils, not even double rares. This deck might actually be the cheapest faction deck to build in all of English right now. And you know what else? This is it. This deck you're looking at has 4 copies of every card minus the level 3 event that the Antispiral have in the set. Of course, these Mugen are an exception, but there aren't any other blue cards in the set. It has a grand total of 2 single rares, 3 uncommons, and 4 commons. What you see is what you get. So basically, Bushi built this deck for us. The only thing you could really mess with is the ratios, but being that you can fit 4 of each card with plenty of room for as many Mugen as you want, there's not too much point. So being that this is pretty much a pre-built deck, this will be short. There are only 9 different cards in the whole set, so let's get started. As you can see, the level 0 has the trademark staple of any blue enemy faction deck, a character that you can run any number of. But unlike QB or Predation Titan, Mugen doesn't actually gain any power. Mugen is the bastard child of Predation Titan and Pursuit Titan, a 500 power bottom decker that can appear up to 42 times in any legal Weiss Schwarz deck. But unlike Pursuit Titan, there's no reason for this guy to stick around. The sole purpose of this card is to blow itself up along with its opponent, but it actively ruins your opponent's compression, so that's kinda cool. What's also kind of cool is that unless its level 0 opponent is level boosted or can run away, there's 0 way to come out on top. And it's too small to trigger the clock switch and stock bombs out there that might hinder it from ending up in your waiting room. It's actually pretty annoying. But speaking of annoying, let's move on to the second of 3 different level 0s. This is Messenger Nia, and she's one of 2 rares in the whole deck. Just call her Mama Mugen. She has a climax combo with a blue stock soul. When it's played, you can pitch a card and rise 2 Mugen to any position of the stage standing. So it guarantees 2 attackers. And you know what? Since Mugen are just designed to blow up and end up in your waiting room, it's not like you'll be starving for targets. Mama Mugen is the gift that just keeps on giving, and she really mitigates the inevitable hand bleeding that gimmicky decks like this can suffer from. But just in case you are starving for targets, she has another ability. She's actually a brainstormer. But fitting for her Antispiral persona, Mama Mugen is not your conventional brainstormer. Tap 2 and mill 4. So far, so good. If among the 4 cards you milled is a card called Mugen, search your deck for up to 1 Antispiral character. So this is a brainstormer that can't actually trigger more than once, and doesn't need to hit climaxes. What the actual f***? Nia is an almost guaranteed search every turn. It's not like you have 15 Mugen or anything. The only downside is that even if you hit 4 Mugen on the mill, you only search once. But seriously, if you're running the blue enemy faction deck, what better support could you ask for? But we're not done. There's one more card in the level 0 lineup here, and that's this Antispiral dude right here. So on play, he top checks for Antispiral characters. He's one of the only ways to filter your hand in the deck. So not bad considering everything. But here's his second effect. When you play a blue climax, you can return this bozo to your hand and give another Antispiral character plus 2k until the end of turn. So this is a totally recurrable hand filter. He can put targets in your waiting room, hunt for key cards, and then when you combine him with Mama Mugen over here, he even steps politely out of the way when she gives birth and makes the babies bigger to boot. Okay, that's kind of a gross image, but do you get the point? The point is that these 3 level 0 characters are actually an airtight and super reliable engine. They were clearly made for each other. Even if there were other level 0s in the set, it would be tough to work them in because this machine is just so efficient. This level 0 is the epitome of the phrase, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid. And this level 0 ain't stupid. It gets an A+ from me. It's actually super annoying to deal with, and it's pretty much 100% different as far as game plans go, but it's got a strange power to it. And speaking of strange power, let's move on to the level 1. Oh, well that was short. See, there's another key difference from Titan here. The Antispiral have no level 1 that can show up more than 4 times. For that matter, they only have one level 1 card, period. And it's this advanced Mugen, a 1/0 2500 that when it comes in, grabs a Mugen from the yard and uses it as a marker to give itself a 4500 boost. So it's a 107k with 0 downsides. Well, one downside. You can only run 4 of it. In this deck, before you hit level 2, Mama Mugen and her spawn are pretty much your game plan. This advanced Mugen is awesome when you can get your hands on it, which you should absolutely try before level 1, but it's in short supply. The deck is really designed just to slam 500 power Mugen into whatever and not care about what your opponent does. The level 1 advanced Mugen is really just icing on the cake. And that's why I give this level 1 the low ranking of C+. It's barely functional and doesn't deliver much. 7k isn't really big enough to stand up to much considering there's no way to recur the character, and until level 2, you can't even back it up. It's not much better than running 4 of a trial deck card as your whole level 1 game. But luckily this deck doesn't really care. Let's move on to some more interesting stuff. So check this out, 12 level 2s. While this deck has the smallest level 1 in English, it has the largest level 2. So let's start here, the giant turd with faces. So this is a 2/1 assister that gives all your other Antispiral plus 1k, and it has the following ability. At the beginning of the climax phase, not yours, if all your other characters are Antispiral, each player puts all characters with levels higher than their current level on the bottom of their deck in any order. So this dude, if you remember the feat from the show, is super in flavor. It stops your opponent from evolving, moving forward, and taking advantage of any early plays. And since the Antispirals don't do that, they have none, so it doesn't matter. I was playing in my locals the week TTGL came out, and I was piloting Standby SAO. This thing bombed 2 level 3 Asanas from my back row and 1 Lisbeth from my front. It was one of the most brutal moves that anyone's ever made on me. So this is what the Antispiral think of standby triggers in early plays. By the way, even if you play early plays on your turn against this deck, you won't even make it to the climax phase. Putting this thing on the board is absolutely barbaric. It just ruins people's days. But speaking of ruining people's days, let's look at Kyo Mugen. This dude is like advanced Mugen, where when it comes in, it grabs a baby Mugen from the yard and then uses it to boost itself. But instead of plus 4500, this guy is base 4500 and gets plus 6k for the marker. So a 2-1-10-5 with 0 downsides. If that doesn't ruin your day, I don't know what will. Oh wait, yes I do. A 2-1-3k backup that changes into the 2-1-10-5 for free. Yeah, sure, why not, right? Either keep this thing as a backup or use it as an extra 4 Kyo Mugen, which, by the way, still gets the marker if you change into it. Yuck. It's no wonder this deck runs 12 level 2s. They're all brutal. When this deck hits level 2, run for the hills. S-rank, without a doubt. Because the thing is, without early plays, what's going to get over an 11-5 wall? It's a total lockout. So there's actually only 2 other cards in this deck. One is an event, and one is the only level 3 character in the deck. Since it's our main finisher, let's start with the event. Antispiral Machine is a 3/2 backup that says you can take 2 of your opponent's characters who aren't in battle and switch them as stand. So you might think to yourself, well, that doesn't prevent any attacks. But imagine this. Your opponent has a full field of last shot Xenon out and ready to attack you 6 times. So what you do is on the first attack, choose a last shot and a back row and just switch them, totally denying the combo. This event doesn't totally turn off an attacker, but it does deny combos and totally screw up your opponent's field. So with that taken care of, we can close out this ultra short deck tech with Ultimate Universal Diablo Granzaboma Exterminador de Spirales. Why? Granzaboma is the mech's technical name, but Universal Diablo, whatever. So Granzaboma is the only other rare in the deck and the only finisher. He heals when he comes in, and he has a climax combo with this pants. When he attacks, you can pay 1 and pitch a card. You mill the top 3 cards of your deck and perform this ability. Look at up to X cards from the top of your opponent's deck, and choose up to X and put them in the waiting room. Then your opponent shuffles his deck, where X is the number of cards called Mugen you revealed on your mill, plus 2. So instead of trying to beat the odds of your opponent canceling your attacks by making as many as possible, this Antispiral mecha just attacks your opponent's compression directly. meaning the probability of them canceling is much lower. So this ability can be absolutely devastating. If you hit 2 climaxes in, say, the top 4 cards on a super compressed deck, you can turn an unwinnable turn into an unlosable turn. But if you don't find any climaxes, you can just leave the damage on top. Your opponent still shuffles their deck, and that means you went from guaranteed damage to taking a chance. But it's not as much of a coin flip because, on a statistics level, you never end up with less chance of your opponent canceling when you choose to activate the ability. It can feel like playing God when you're literally throwing climaxes out of your opponent's deck. But the problem is that you can't guarantee damage even with this, and Granzaboma doesn't burn, restand, or do anything besides turn sideways to actually close the game. So what's our verdict here? The level 3 is weird for sure, and the abilities are unique, but the problem is they don't make any promises. And there are much better ways to stop an attacker in its tracks and do damage. I give it a B-. And that's it. This might actually be one of the shortest deck techs I'll ever do. This is the whole deck and the whole showcase of blue cards from TTGL. I'm actually kind of disappointed there are no Antispiral foils because I think they'd look really cool. But this deck is unique in just about every sense, even for an enemy blue faction deck. In TTGL, Antispirals were the antithesis of any spiral life form, and this deck captured their flavor in just about every way. So it's going to have a special place in my heart, even if it sacks me at this fall's regionals in round 1. How will it do that? Well, even though the deck isn't going to trade out between level 1 and 2, it can still push damage in. The real terrifying thing about how this deck plays is that it's tough to make it run out of resources even though it ends up losing 3 characters a turn until it hits level 2. Even at level 0, it runs parity to whatever is thrown at it, like an annoying mirror. And because of the Nia Brainstormer and the recursion of the top checker, the deck has potential to gain hand size even when throwing all its attackers to the sharks. It doesn't need to defend its characters or do crazy things to keep hand advantage. It's all in the level 0 engine. When you're playing this deck, this is your game plan for the entire game. Use Mama Mugen to ensure that you have 3 attackers per turn, recur the Antispiral top checker as much as you can, and all the while, use the guaranteed search on the Nia to find your late game targets. Then ride on your level 2s until you can get the Granzabomas into your hand. Just make sure to pants a pants sometime in the game, and you're basically golden. But if you don't get this engine set up, things can be pretty tough. Which brings me to our ratings, and particularly to consistency. The Antispiral make for one hell of a sack deck. Sometimes, because of the free and simple engine combined with the fact that the deck really screws with your opponent, you'll just oops into a victory. Also, because most of the characters besides the level 0s get markers and all the stock generation that happens, the deck also has really good compression potential. But if you can't get Nia online or draw a bunch of climaxes, you're 100% SOL. There's very little room to play yourself out of a bad situation with this one. You just kind of hope that the deck runs like it's supposed to, and you don't end up with 3 Granzabomas in your stock that you can't reach, or a handful of level 2s and climaxes. You're limited to 1 search and a few top checks a turn at the very most, and losing out on even 1 search a turn can be devastating. So if they don't work out for you, you're going to have a bad time. For consistency, it's a B- for me. But that also transitions us into skill. Players, Bushi literally built this deck for us. It wasn't like some things where they gave us a lot of cards and a heavy-handed opinion on which ones worked well together. They said, this is the Antispiral deck. It does what it does, and if you can assemble the components onto the field, just watch the Death Spiral machine work. There's no need to be crafty with anti-change backups or power games. You throw Mugen at your opponent until you hit level 2, and then you lock them out of serious components of your deck with just the card text that you have, all while putting up one of the most efficient walls even a celebrity president could ask for. The hardest decision you'll make when you play this deck is whether or not to use Mama Mugen's climax effect past level 0, or whether 1 turd face is enough, or you really need 2. Maybe using Death Spiral Machine has a little more nuance, but in most situations, the best line of play should be pretty obvious. Put the thing that can kill you more in the back row, and bring up the thing that can kill you less. The deck isn't quite brain dead because you'll still need some target awareness to make sure you don't screw yourself. But it's close. It gets a C. Now for power. This is an interesting case. The deck has a lot of raw power in terms of numbers after level 0. Arguably, the Antispiral are the absolute best bang for your buck in terms of paying for power without fine print. And their abilities are all pretty devastating. But while they excel in certain areas, they're severely lacking in others. If you know the deck, it's easy to play around the more brutal parts of it. And let's face it, it doesn't finish well. Until the deck hits level 2, it's basically a Soul Rush deck without the +2 soul. and Soul Rush decks aren't known for how powerful their cards are. The deck is way more about getting itself online and keeping up advantage with a busted line of plays, rather than blowing you out card for card. Can you get above 7k at level 1? If the answer is yes, then you basically have nothing to fear even if the anti-spirals aren't leaving any fodder for your combos. The level 2 wall is really, in my opinion, the strongest part of the deck. And at the end of the day, a wall is just a wall. It might reverse characters, but it doesn't stop damage. And while Granzaboma and the Death Spiral Machine have neat and unique effects, the chances that they'll actually save you from dying or kill your opponent is much lower than if you were just using more precision tools. So while it has its strengths, and they're strong, it also has its weaknesses. I give it a straight B. But who cares? Just go online, grab the bunk, throw it together, and laugh while your $10 deck sends your try-hard friends' SSP early plays to the waiting room and sacks them out with 500 power Mugens. The funniest thing about this deck is its chance just to sack its way into a W with little player input. It's kind of like picking up a guitar, learning the chords to Wonderwall, and then playing it at parties. You're not actually playing the guitar or a skilled musician by any means, but sometimes it'll just get you there because of the nature of the thing. And one thing I didn't mention before is just how damn fun this deck is to play. And how could I leave that out? You get to do stuff you'd never do in any other matchup, and your plays feel hilarious every time you do them. If you're going to your locals, don't feel like busting out the big guns, but still feel like busting some balls, this deck is always the right choice. Thanks for sticking with us, players. Next time, we'll be heading over to the other side of Super Spiral space and taking a look at just what made Granzaboma finally fall. I think you know what it is, so look forward to it. And as always, thanks for watching, players. Peace.